welcome back everybody to another episode of Fluid Operations. So we're excited to have our latest guest, Walter Helmandollar. Walter, I'm saying that correctly, correct?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So Walter's joining us. Walter and I recently met at an event in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, the South Carolina Water Environmental Association conference. It was the operators conference. So again, out just talking to people, met him. He's willing to come on our show. We're excited to have him on here. Can't wait for him to introduce himself, tell us a little bit about what he does. And as you all know, joining me side by side, Miller Truby. Miller, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and Kirk, may I just say you did a wonderful job with a lot of difficult names and words in there in that intro, and one take, baby. That's awesome.
Hey, that's what we're here to do. We're trying to perfect this. Obviously, there's been a lot of errors in the past, but hopefully today's going to be a good day for all of us.
That's right. It's a good start. No, yeah, happy to be
Perfect.
here and happy to be back doing yet another episode of the Fluid Operations Podcast, where we get to talk to interesting people who have interesting stories and interesting perspectives on how this industry is going and how the world of making water is working out for everyone.
Perfect. Well, hey, no further ado, Walter, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to have you just do an introduction of who you are, what you do at your facility or at your utility, how you got into this industry, and let's get it rolling.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. And good job pronouncing my last name on the first go. Usually, you don't have too many Helmandollars here in the Carolinas. But my
Love
name
it.
is Walter Helmandollar. I work at the Catawba River Water Supply Project. I'm an operator there. I hold an A license. I got into the industry sort of a little. I want to say maybe a little later than others, but I would say like others, I didn't know anything about it until I got into the world and then realized what it's all about. But originally, I'm from West Virginia, so I went undergrad, got my undergrad studies from there, and I got a biology degree in West Virginia and moved to the Carolinas around 2010. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I have a background in sciences. I was actually introduced to the idea of water treatment from a cousin in West Virginia. Um, they told me that they worked at a water plant, and it put it in my mind, and still didn't really know what to do after undergraduate. And once I got into South Carolina, Rock Hill, I started thinking more about the little bug of water plant. So York Tech, which is in Rock Hill, had a co-op with the plant I'm at, and that changed everything for me. It got me in the door there. So I did an internship with them for about a year and just opened up the world to me. I really enjoyed it, and I lucked out because there was a gentleman who was about to retire while I was interning there, an operator. Uh, because typically in this business, um, you a person gets into these jobs and they stay there. They retire from there. So this gentleman retired, and they saw the work that I did while I was interning. I got along with everyone, so I got the opportunity to take the position, and I accepted it, and I've been there for going on 14 years now.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, congratulations on that. 14 years is a long time to be anywhere in these day and age, or this day and age, I should say. So
Yes,
that's awesome. Um, and great that they recognized that internship and you were able to be seen. That's uh,
yes,
that's also really cool.
yeah, it was
Wow.
very helpful.
So on a day-to-day basis, what's what do you like about what you do?
What I like about what I do probably the most is the freedom of being able to work not only inside in a lab, in a plant, but also out in the field. I like the combination of not having to sit at a computer, all work shift. I'm able to, I'm required to walk around the plant, go out in the field. I'm taking samples. I'm working in the lab. I'm checking out our pump stations or um, going to the river. Our river is located about a mile from our actual plant. So we take a vehicle or side by sides and, patrol the area. So I think that's what I like most about it is the freedom to get out in the field and do work on a computer, monitor SCADA, but also get hands-on as well.
Yeah, that lines up nicely too. I think with some of the stuff that you were talking about with your background, having a interest in STEM, having an interest in biology, that's going to lend itself, I think, to somebody like yourself who wants to be out, looking at things, observing things, going through the experience of running a system like this, and not just the computer interface side of things. And that, I think we've heard that a few different times now from some of the different operators that we've talked to. And I certainly have run into that, I guess, personality profile quite a lot. It's part of how I ended up in this industry. Obviously, I didn't end up as an operator, but still kind of getting into it because I wanted to travel and go and see stuff, and I wanted to understand how things work. And I also enjoy the technology, human machine interface side of things as well. But yeah, I think that personality profile lends itself nicely to being an operator or a maintenance technician at one of these facilities. You have to be interested in more than just staring at a computer screen. You have to be the type of person who is interested in really understanding how something works, and then going out and touch it, taste it, feel it, be able to take it apart, not be scared to break it, and ask for help to put it back together in some cases. Is that
absolutely?
And it's interesting that you say you ended up in this kind of by accident, because we hear that a lot. But it's do you think that having that sort of profile of being that type of person who wants to experience your job in that way is part of why you stuck and this became a career for you?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Just I had that science background, and it is used in everyday work with the water quality, water chemistry. So it really is a big factor in what got me to stay with it as well. We as an operator, we wear many hats. You have to. I like that as well. That aspect of it is you have to know maybe the basics of many different capabilities, like a little bit about pumps, a little bit of electricity. You just have to check on numerous things at work.
So the diversity is fun.
That's
I
right.
love that.
Yeah.
Love that. So one of the things I'm always big on is how important these jobs are that we do, right? And how important the job is you do to make sure this, like you said, you're out there sampling the water, you're doing all these things, you're making sure it's going. How complicated is it for you guys to, because you said you gave us you're a Class A operator, correct?
Yes, sir.
So how long does it take to get to that point? You've been there 14 years. How long does it take to get there, and how many steps is it to get to that point?
Well, to hold the A, you've actually have to pass the test, obviously, but you've got to have 4 years to get the license in hand, which I did pass that just because I was given time for my internship, and I was actually given some time because I held a bachelor degree, which that helped me. So I just went through all the tests, starting at when I started taking them, it started with an E as opposed to starting with a D. And I went through E, D, C, B, A. And since I did have that background education and I did the internship, it all counted as time for me. So I got my A in less than 4 years, but which I'm very, very thankful that they added that time for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's great. I mean, to do that in 4 years, that's really cool.
And when I first started there, it was a B level plant, but we have since upgraded, and we are now currently an A. But I did have my A before we went to A.
So help again, what does that mean? And you went from a B plant to an A plant. What does that consist of?
So we upgraded to membranes. That was the big factor that bumped us up in the
Sure.
capacity. Little background about the plant. We are kind of a unique plant in that we first we're jointly owned by Union County, North Carolina, and Lancaster County, South Carolina. So I actually service Union, North Carolina, and Lancaster County, South Carolina. So that's unique there that we're doing two different counties. But before I was there, from my understanding, we were a 13 MGD plant. And they upgraded to 18 and then to 36. I entered the picture when it was a 36 MGD plant. And over the years, we added membranes, we've added a 90-acre reservoir, and we bumped up our capacity to 42 MGD. So that is what really bumped us up to having an A license.
Yeah, I imagine that'll get some attention from the permitting departments when you tell them you want to go up to 42 MTD, or you said 42, right? That's quite a plant, especially from something that started at 13. However many years ago that might be. That's definitely, I can see why they would want A-class operators in charge of that plant and those processes, because that's a lot of equipment, that's a lot of water, and that's a lot of responsibility in place. That's a neat story. What was that process like going up from? I think you said when you were there, you went from 36 up to 42. So what has that process been like with trying to justify the resources and go through, as an operator, learning what you have to do new when you put in a new 90-acre pond? What do you have? How do you take care of it? How do you run it? How do you get it shown on your SCADA screens? All that sort of stuff. How's that process been for you?
It's really, really a very neat process. I got to see a lot of work unfolding, a lot of big machinery. Well, to answer why it was justified really is we had a 14 to 16 acre reservoir existing before the 90 acre. And if something happened and we were unable to pull from the river for, a week or a few days or whatever, that smaller reservoir would only give us maybe 3 to 6 days, depending on our rate, worth of water available to send to the population. So that really justified us doing the work to get that larger reservoir. So we went from 3 to 6 days of water on hand if we just had immediately stopped pulling from the river to 26 to 55 days now with the big reservoir. It's calculated to hold 100 billion gallons. So watching that land be prepared to put a reservoir there, I got to see how it all unfolded from the beginning, and it was a big educational experience. It's very neat seeing how they do this type of work and all that goes into it. So it was really neat being a part of it and watching it come up. So mainly that is a big reason for having it, is so we'd have more water on hand in case we're unable to pull from the river.
So
Wow.
did you get a lot of interface with as they were doing the construction and then the rollout? That's one of the things that I've always thought was interesting to understand is at what point do the operators get to kind of come in and see, okay, here's the new thing that we've built, and now here's what you have to do in your day-to-day life to take care of it. Did that start for you during the construction process where you kind of got to, go and see what was happening day to day, or was it kind of hands off until it's finished and then we'll hand it to you?
No, we were in the middle of it. So really, I got to see how nice it is to have SCADA, working with SCADA. During that upgrade, we had to run in hand for, a lot of time. So we were there constantly working with them as they were working on an area. If some technology was affected by it, we'd be there doing what we had to do in the meantime of them getting the technology back up. So SCADA is super nice.
No kidding.
So yeah. So we would run in hand a lot while they were doing this work. And as it happens, we are actually having a SCADA upgrade currently right now. So we're not to the point to where we're going to have to run in manual yet, but it's coming. So we're preparing for that. But yeah, like as we run 24/7, my plant doesn't shut down. And we're a small fraternity of people. We're 8 operators, and we have our lab technicians. But we run 24/7, so we could never shut down while they were doing this work. We just have to work around what's happening. And it created some challenges, but it was interesting how it all was done.
And that, again, you said some key things for me. 24/7 operation. Even while we were adding this massive pond to the program. So, I mean, you guys never shut down. How many residents does that affect? What is your population you guys serve?
A little over 300,000. So Lancaster County, last I looked, was a little over 100,000 population. And Union County is, I believe, around 250,000. So safely around 350,000 population.
And you said you have 8 operators.
Yes.
So each one of you is responsible for 43,750 people. That's a pretty big number. I mean, when you go back and look at it, I mean, when the operators are there, they're responsible for 350,000. There's 8 people managing 350,000 people's water.
Yes, sir, it is.
That has to be at their tap every day, has to be there for them to survive. I mean, plus everything else that goes on, that's a lot of responsibility for a very few amount of people. And again, I'm always big about, a big part of this, and we talked about it too, Walter, was I want people to know how important these jobs are and how gratifying these jobs are too, knowing that I'm responsible for helping 350,000 people every day when I go to work. Makes me feel proud. Thank you for the service you guys are doing as well, because when I visit there, water's always there. So
thank you. And absolutely. And we take it very seriously, and main objective is safe. Second is aesthetically pleasing, good water.
And there's an extra piece of that too in the case of Walter's plant, and that is you're also talking about interstate or at least inter-county relations, being that you serve 2 different states.
Yes.
I imagine there's some extra pressure and responsibility if something does go wrong. That utility has to answer to 2 different state and permitting bodies, and that just adds a whole lot of extra work and a lot of extra pressure to make sure that you get it right, because you don't want to create an incident Not that you would want to in any case, but that's just extra people coming down on top of you if something goes wrong. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
it's amazing how much rides on such a small crew of people putting in time to keep something running 24/7 that is absolutely critical infrastructure.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. And like I said earlier, I didn't know anything about it obviously before I got into it, but just seeing how everything works in the industry and what is done to get the water to uh, the population it's incredible. It's incredible. A real quick little information piece about before I was there, from my understanding, uh, we were created for a special purpose district, really. And Lancaster had a water plant. This is before I was there, but they had a smaller water plant and a couple reservoirs that they would pull from. And they had a real bad iron and manganese issue. And it was kind of staining people's laundry and fixtures. And Union County at the time was buying water from Charlotte, and Charlotte was the price was high. So Union and Lancaster got together and said, "Well, let's do this joint venture, and help each other out." So that's how we got started. And I'm not sure how many in the state of South Carolina there are, but we are actually an upflow superpulsator plant. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those.
I don't think I have heard that term. So can you explain what that is?
So as opposed to conventional treatment, the upflow superpulsator, one benefit is it's a smaller footprint. Another is it's lower energy costs to run it. But our plant has as a flocculator, it has a large vacuum chamber that will pull a column of water to a certain length, a height, and slowly drop it down, and that acts as the flocculator. So we essentially can combine flocculation, sedimentation, and clarification in one basin. And that's where we get the savings and smaller footprint from. And we can take high solid water and produce low NTU effluent.
Very neat. So was that was the footprint the primary driving factor behind going with that technology, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we hear about that quite a lot, just in the sense that sometimes going to solve a problem that is observed by operators or maintenance staff, it's one thing to come up with a solution. It's another thing entirely to make it fit in the building or the plant site that you've got available to you. And, depending on where you're at geographically, some places are luckier than others to have footprint that they can throw lots of equipment at a problem if they've got the capital expenditure to do so. And other places really can't do that because they're, stuck in underneath a specific building, and you're really limited by how much space you can take up. And so then you're looking for all of these potentially more complex and more operator taxing solutions. But if that's what you have to do to get it done, it's either that or don't solve the problem that you're trying to solve. So it's interesting to hear choices like that being made. And then how does that turn around? Is that easier to run for you guys, or does that add complexity and stress for the operations staff with a piece of equipment like that?
Well, that's a good question. It's all complex. However, it is I want to say I've never worked with a conventional plant, but I've had tours of conventional plants. And I want to say that it is slightly um, being as complex as it can be. I believe since it combines the different, flocculation sedimentation into one basin. I believe that makes it a slightly easier to handle. So it's really neat technology, and we still have gravity fed filters, and then we've added the membrane filters. Ultrafiltration is the type of membranes we have, and that added they're capable of producing 6 million. So that gave us an extra 6 million on top of that. But it's just really neat how it works, because in these clarification basins on top of the vacuum chamber, we have these plate settlers, which mainly give a lot more surface area than it would if that basin didn't have the plate settlers. It gives it more surface area for this for the turbidity to settle through. And we've also added tube settlers, which further increases the settling capability of it. So, when the plant is wanting to behave, it runs like a nice oiled Cadillac.
Which is fantastic. I mean, that's what you want
Right.
to hear as an operator, is something that just comes on and does what you want it to do. And if you can stay on top of it and keep it out of those bad operational zones, then you got it made for the most part.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever perfect, but for the most part, I imagine.
There's always something happening, and
Yep.
I'm sure this is a cliche, but I do, I'm learning something about every day or every work shift. And
I'm sure.
that's another aspect that I love of with my job is, the capacity of being able to learn new stuff, and it's not all the same. There's different challenges that arise, depending on the season, the year, storms. Everyone went through COVID, and we're not able to shut down. We have to run 24/7. So it's just the environmental changes that affect it as well.
That's a major impact, I'm sure. The environmental changes, storm events. I'm sure that adds complexity to the treatment process, to your, pond that's out there and getting stuff draining into it and everything else. And it just adds a whole, like you said, a whole nother level of complexity. Plus, being North Carolina, and do you have to report twice? Did you guys have double reporting to both states?
Yes.
So there's more reporting that has to be done by your plant as well, with less staff, right? So you still have that 8 people, multiple states now. A lot of people run the same plant with 8, but they only have one state to report to. So it's a lot of duplicate work, redundancy.
Yeah. Well, we have 8 operators. We do have a lab crew and
Sure.
chief operator and director and everything, and maintenance crew. I have to give a shout out to the maintenance crew, because there's only 4 maintenance guys, and they keep us running
Wow.
in the hard times.
Wow.
So they're going all over this plant, fixing whatever occurs. So we have a nice plant that's smoothly running, and I'm very grateful to be there. The plant itself, the location, I always like to brag about this, but it kind of resembles a small state park. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful area. So I'm very lucky in that regard. I have been to some plants that are kind of more like located in a city,
Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just like looking at the environment around our location.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite things, a little bit of an aside, but one of my favorite things is I'm on some of the water operations subreddits, if you use Reddit at all. And one of the ones that gets posted regularly on there is people posting their the view from their plant, or the wildlife that they've encountered while doing their daily rounds. And some of them are and some of them are funny, of course, but some of them are plants that are in absolutely gorgeous places where you wouldn't expect a piece of industrial equipment to be, and you can't really tell that it's there because they're looking out at some beautiful forest or a mountainscape. And it's like, man, how do I sign up for that? It's a good way to sell this career in this industry. And hey, come and if you like a view like this, come and work on a piece of equipment. And maybe you'll get a plant like this. Like you said, though, for everyone like that, there's one in a city suburb or a downtown center that's maybe less interesting to look at, but then might be more interesting for people who have interest in city. If they want restaurants around and things like that, maybe that's better for them. But yeah, it's a good selling point for the industry as a career, though. It's a way to see the world.
Yeah, I did look up on that end.
So another question I have for you, obviously we're a digital company. So how digital is your facility? Do you guys have a lot of digital capacity? Do you guys have any kind of automation that you're using? What's that look like for you guys?
Mainly, I would answer that with the main thing that we use would be SCADA.
Mm-hmm.
So our HMI for our membrane SCADA and our plant SCADA are mainly the main means that we have, I believe.
Mm-hmm. They're your backbone. They keep the plant running smoothly. You get to see everything as in operations and what's going on, and they're the heart.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. So mainly we're relying on SCADA.
Okay. No, that's great. I mean, I would say most plants do run on SCADA these days, so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear you say that it sounds like you have two different SCADA systems. Likely, I imagine when that upgrade was done to bring in the membrane system, the UF membranes, that may have gotten its own system rather than integrating it into the existing SCADA system that was there. So does that pose any problems as you guys as operators bounce between those two different SCADA? I mean, do you have to sign into a different account to see the one or the other, or is that fairly smooth?
Yes, that's correct. When they upgraded, it had its own independent system. The membranes did. So it's still like that currently. Doesn't pose that much of a issue because we've set up our consoles or our HMI, our interface, are right beside each other, so we can do both. We can run both plants basically beside each other. But we're still shifting. Of course, we use SCADA, but there's still manual. We're still running manually and everything with some pumps and what have you. But it doesn't pose that much of an issue having them separate. The membranes are just the membranes are independently the membranes, and the rest of the plant is right beside it on a different computer that we are controlling.
Is it the same SCADA brand or the same package or the same integrator, or are they two completely separate products?
They're two different products.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to me because in our experience, running a system like that and trying to get those systems to talk to each other, especially when one is downstream of the other potentially, and where they really have to be able to work together. If it's working smoothly, then great. But I imagine if there's an upset, there might be a bit of a learning curve there at times to get those to cooperate and work together. And that's, I imagine that may add extra stress at times.
Sure. Yeah, it has, and there was definitely a learning curve. But once we got the hang of it, it wasn't too bad.
Good to hear. That's the way it should be.
Yeah,
yes.
That's fun. So I always like to ask different weird questions, but what is like one of the best days you've ever had out there? Like that you've either learned something, discovered something, or whatever that may be. What's that look like?
Best day had. Well, that would be when we had 0 hiccups in a shift. Right, 0 hiccups in the shift, and well, a good day really. would be, I enjoy our field work in where I get out, make my way to the river, checking substations and pump stations and what have you. So a good day would be seeing some wildlife going
Oh, yeah.
out to, yeah, so seeing some wildlife going out to the river, and the plant is happy and no faultings are occurring.
Nice. Love that. So what does the wildlife around you look like? What kind of things do you see out there?
Well, deer, coyote, eagles, osprey.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just beautiful wildlife.
Yeah. Sounds amazing.
I would say I'd be tempted to have a camera with a telephoto lens in the truck with me at all times, but
Yeah.
obviously you don't want to get too distracted from your actual job.
Right. Yeah. No, I've definitely taken some pictures of some animals.
Nice. So Walter, when you're not working, what do you enjoy doing?
When I'm not working,
Yeah.
well, I am an avid reader.
Okay.
I've pointed the camera at my bookshelf so I could show that off a little bit. But
Hence the
yeah,
bookshelf.
Love it.
I enjoy reading.
Yep.
I do run and play some pickleball. So that's what I'm doing when I'm not working. I am playing those activities.
Now, pickleball, obviously, that's a huge thing down here.
It's huge right now.
Everyone knows that's what been listening to the podcast. I'm new to South Carolina, so pickleball's new for me. I played it a couple of times, but so are you on like a league and a team and all that kind of stuff?
Yes, I'm in a league in
Nice.
Charlotte. We're playing, so yeah, and I run some and
Yep.
and read, and I'm in that league. Which the league we've got some tough people right now, so it's tough.
You know, I think this is like the fourth mention now of pickleball on this podcast, Kirk. I think maybe our $1 million idea is going to be to start a water utility pickleball semi-competitive league, and we'll get all these guys playing each other.
That would be pretty neat.
That'd be fun.
A good way for inter-utility cooperation and network building, right?
Yeah.
You just have to, for most of these utilities, though, you have to have a hunting event surrounding it.
Or that, yeah. If it's in the southeast, that's for sure.
Yes.
Or at least camouflage net or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Mhm.
Well, one other question. Do you have any questions for us, Walter?
Aside from SCADA,
Mhm.
what is another example you can give me of what possibly could be used?
Oh, that's a great question. Miller, you want to take that one?
Sure. I mean, we've run into quite a lot of different deployments out there. The first one that comes to mind, obviously, is a lot of utilities have CMMS systems to handle work orders and work management. They'll have integrations with like GIS, where they've got all of their network of deployed architecture mapped in GIS so that they can track each of those assets, where they are in the field and what's going on with it. A lot of pieces of third-party software to do calculations and things that, depending on the SCADA system you're using, some SCADA systems it's easy to add something like a calculation or a virtual sensor, and some of them it's very difficult. And depending on how many resources you have for integration, if you have somebody on staff who can do that kind of stuff, then maybe you just do it in SCADA. If you don't, then you end up out at some third-party piece of software that can do that sort of stuff for you. And then, of course, the engineering firms all have their own bespoke pieces of software that they want to deploy. Many of them built in things like Microsoft Power BI, where they're going to take data out of your SCADA system and run it through their optimization program and then send it back to you. That's kind of part of what Turing does as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we run into people using different and interesting pieces of software, and sometimes they talk to each other nicely, and sometimes they don't. More often than not, they don't. That's kind of how we ended up in the position that we're in. But that's where it gets interesting, is trying to understand what is the workflow, and that's kind of why we like talking to operators. What is the workflow? How do you get from an alarm is going off and I have a problem to, hey, I know what the solution is for this, and we find it's different at every plant and with every operations team that we talk to. And maybe that's, what does it look like for you guys when you run into, if you come in the morning and there's an alarm going off, how do you go from acknowledging the alarm to knowing what to do about that particular alarm? Let's assume it's not a nuisance alarm.
Mm-hmm. Well, typically, we come in, if there's an issue, it's usually we have positive displacement pumps for, say, chemicals. An example I could use for you would be, first, seeing what is alarming and pointing out where it's at, what stage it's at, and going to the pump. Let's say it's a pump, and it's typically either a hose in the peristaltic pump that's gone out, or there's been some type of energy surge that's stopped whatever technology from working. So it's very specific on where we need to run to get to that issue, and once we diagnose it, it's we jump on it fairly quickly.
Fair enough, and it's interesting because the one thing you didn't mention there, and this is what I'm really curious about. Would you, once seeing that alarm, would you jump into the data first to try and figure out what's going on, or would you walk out to that piece of equipment first and just physically see, hey, is it spraying chemical in the air or whatever it may be? Is there a process there? And it sounds like for you, it's more go and view the piece of equipment first, and then if that doesn't solve it, then maybe come back and jump into the data, right?
Typically put my eyes on it, physically put my eyes on it, see what's going on, and then go back and assess whether, this data point has been doing whatever it was doing. But typically jump on it in person first.
Yeah, and I think that's where, to get into a little bit of the prognostication part of this that we always like to do, I think this is where a lot of companies, including us, full disclosure, want to try to start playing, is bringing in the ability to have a system that self-diagnoses from a standpoint of asset management, where, if you didn't have somebody at the site, or if it happens, in between shifts or something like that, where the system can tell you, hey, here's what's wrong. Not just, hey, there's an alarm going off, but hey, here is the thing that you need to do. So rather than, you can basically skip that process of going out and diagnosing and get directly to the fixing. Because, sometimes if it's an easy fix, maybe it's just go out and, tighten a fitting or something. That's not a big deal. But if it's something that requires, hey, I got to go to a warehouse and get a part, I got to go to Granger and, get something that we don't have sitting on the shelf. I got to go to my truck and get a special tool, those sorts of things. We want to speed those processes along. I think that's what everybody's looking at in this industry now, is how do we speed that process up? Because we know that operations and maintenance staffs aren't going to get bigger and more resourced. They're just going to be asked to do more with more complex treatment plants. Does that factor into your guys' thinking and the way you think about your job? Maybe I can apply technology to do this better, or is that not compelling for you?
No, I think so. I think it would be compelling. I can definitely see the benefits of that. The pump going out was just one example, right? Maybe another example that would be better useful for that type of help would be, let's say we have two pumps that are cycling, that should cycle a certain way. Unless you get into the trending of the data and watch to see these cycles, they may be working, they may be cycling on and off, but in what sequence, the cycles happen. They may be working correctly, which the SCADA says they are, but you would have to, if you want to catch whether those cycles are happening in a pattern like they should, then you would have to go into trending and find the data points and look at it that way. I think what you're saying is maybe some technology that would throw up a red flag that if the cycle has gotten off of pattern somehow.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Yep. Looking at anomalies. So it'd be like an anomaly detection type of situation.
I can see how that would be very beneficial.
That's the dream, I think, for a lot of folks. And again, I'm not. We don't want to turn this into a commercial specifically for us, but that's where we're trying to play. And there's a lot of other companies that are trying to do that same sort of thing and be the first one to get there, really, to bring that kind of technology to bear in a way that a municipal operator can actually use it. It's very different in the industrial spaces where big checkbooks and also a lot more aggressive because those sorts of anomaly detections drive their bottom line. As companies that are making microchips or food and beverage or whatever that may be, they really can't afford to have that kind of anomaly, so they can be much more aggressive with that stuff. On the municipal side, it's much more risk aversion based, and so it's trying to find that happy medium between what is achievable and then is this actually going to improve operations in some measurable way. It's a challenge and it's a journey.
Yep. Yeah, sure. And that's interesting too, because the future, and with my plant, my area specifically, the growth, I was looking at the population growth the other day, and it was talking about the next 10 to 15 years, 25% population growth. And in Lancaster, South Carolina, I may be misquoting this, but was saying that it's maybe the 10th fastest growing county right now. And
wow.
So, and that's another reason that we have been upgrading. Since I have been at my plant, we've constantly been upgrading, which that's good job security. But we've just gotten bigger and better. And there's talks right now to even go from 42 to 56 in the future. Wow. So we're only getting bigger, and the population, communities are growing. So I think that would be great for the industry.
Well, I'm hearing you, and I'm hearing you saying how your growth. I'm hearing you say that the plant may grow, which will mean you'll probably need more operational staff or maintenance staff and things of that nature. And we're getting close to time. So, I mean, I have one final question is, there's a shortage in our industry, right? Operators, maintenance staff coming into this industry. What would be something that we could help generate interest into our, because I was just like you, right? I was dropped into this. I was doing something totally different, and now I love it. So I'm here 20 plus years, enjoying the heck out of it and continuing to do this path. How do we get people interested in doing this work?
That's a good question. But let me add to that a little. So we are actually currently going to be having that issue is, a lot of people, they get into these positions and they will retire from them. And we're having that problem right now is in 5 years from now, 5 to 7 years, we're going to be losing multiple operators and upper management because they got into this plant when it first was built, and they've been there ever since. So we're having the same issue that we're going to have so many people retiring and heading out, and no young people or operators to fill these positions. So that's a very good question, and I'm not really sure how to answer that. It would be great to get what we do more advertised to younger people, but I don't know how to answer that.
it is a bit, we talked at the very beginning from your introduction of yourself, being the type of person you have to be curious and a little bit adventurous, and you have to be willing to be a master of many different things with a fairly wide knowledge set. And, I think if we can find a way as an industry to incentivize younger people that, hey, if you're that personality type, this is an industry where you are going to thrive. Because those people are out there, but I think a lot of the times they go to oil and gas, or something like that is the same sort of adventure, maybe, but potentially pays a lot more and is on the corporate side instead of the municipal utility side. We really have to drag some of those people over here to fill in those gaps with good, curious minds who want to learn. And I think, I don't know exactly what the solution is. If I did, I'd be a gazillionaire. But it's tough.
Yeah, and it's a very important role, the water industry, and not to sound dramatic or anything, but we're saving people's lives really when it comes down to it because of waterborne illness and everything. But it's very important what we do.
It's absolutely critical. I mean, literal critical infrastructure.
Yep.
Right.
Again, that's why you never shut down even during COVID when everybody else stayed home. You guys went to work every day. I mean, that was critical infrastructure. And you're right. No one has the answer yet on how we're going to do it. Everyone's looking for options. That's why I like to ask that question. I'm hoping there's one day we'll jar something and it'll be like this amazing thing that all of a sudden we just have a flood of people in our industry.
Yeah. There's got to be some answer to how to get this to the younger generation, because it's always just the big highlights of I don't know, media, a rock star, just nobody thinks of these kind of trade jobs. Or a lot of people don't.
Yeah, they don't. And one of the things that is, why we're doing this podcast is to try to get people to see what we're doing and to understand what's the day-to-day is. But publicly, we don't get noticed that much. Typically, when you hear about a water plant or a wastewater plant or something else, it's negative, unfortunately, not a positive environment. SSOs, and they're like, how much wastewater? Well, that's because there's critical infrastructure that needs to be fixed that we don't have money for.
Just a lot of general population don't really understand how the water gets to them and what is involved in it. It's sort of like you don't miss it unless you turn your faucet and the water's not there anymore. That's when people miss it. And I will go a step above and say I am very thankful for how what this industry does as well, because my mother is actually a Panamanian. I think I might have froze up.
Oh,
okay,
nope.
So
you're good.
My
good on our
mother
side.
is a Panamanian, so from Panama, Central America, a third world country. And I've been visiting there all my life, and their water situation over there is not that great. So, I'm very thankful for how we have water here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think that's a great way to close up with any closing thoughts today. This has been a really fun, enjoyable conversation, Walter. I can't thank you enough for joining us today and kind of telling us about what you do. The plant is so unique. We learned something new today. Like you said, we pretty much learned something new. I have never heard of a upflow super, what'd you say? Upflow super pulsator? Is that what it was? Yeah, that's the first time I've ever heard of that too. So thank you for sharing that with us, because that was something new today for us.
Yeah, thank you again for having me on. This has been a fun talk. I hope I had answered the questions.
No,
absolutely.
We appreciate you, and we appreciate the time, and I know people will enjoy listening to it and listening to your story, and hopefully be inspired to come and join us in the interesting world of water and water operations. Well, thank you very much to our guest today, Walter Helmandollar. We appreciate the time and enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, as always, to Kirk Wessel, my co-host. This has been the Fluid Operations Podcast, and as always, we will be back in about another month. You can always get this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, any of the other major outlets for podcasts. And we appreciate your time and listening to us. Thanks very much.
Thank you.